Okay, welcome everybody to today's Committee of Council. We are make sure that all cell phones and mobile electronic devices are turned off or placed in a non-audible mode during the meeting. The order of the agenda today is the Public Works section, Community Services, Corporate Services, and Economic Development. We have the agenda for today. Is there any additions to the agenda? Councillor Fortini.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to add something to the agenda.
What's the item?
About the 311 and tracking device for discussion.
Corporate service. Okay, we'll add that under corporate services. Mayor Jeffrey? Oh, sorry. What number would that be, Peter? Would that be 7.3.1? Madam Mayor?
Thank you, Chair. I wonder if I could also add something under corporate services with regards to financial review.
Okay, that would be corporate as well. So that would be 7.3.2.
Thank you, Chair.
Are there any other additions to the agenda? Can I get approval of the agenda as amended?
What are we at right now? 7.1?
No, we're doing the we're just adding. We're on the agenda,
Yeah, no.
7.2.3 was the last one. Could I see a show of hands for the approval of the agenda? Thank you. Okay, now we have, there's items, no declaration of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Oh, is there any? Are there any? I'm seeing none. Thank you. We have two items in consent. Are there anybody who wants to pull or add anything into consent? No, thank you very much. We have no announcements. We have two delegations today. So what I'll do is I'll pass it over to Acting Chair Gibson for the first delegation, and actually 5.1 and 5.2 will fall under corporate community services, and also 7.1.1 we've moved up to be, so that will be 5.2.3, I guess. Okay, keep 7.1. We're going to move it up to delegation. So Councillor Gibson.
Want me to do it from here, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
Okay. So your first delegation is Mr. Alex McMullen, Chief Executive Officer of Peel, Halton, Dufferin.
Good morning, Committee of Council. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to speak to you for 5 minutes about our organization. We would like to request an additional 4 minutes to be able to show a short film featuring only our clients and their family members. Okay, thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you again to the Committee of Council. This means a very great deal, and thank you to Councillor Dillon for the introduction to this process and the opportunity to appear before you today. My name is Al McMullen. I'm the CEO of Peel, Halton, Dufferin, Acquired Brain Injury Services. Yes, an horrific mouthful, and we are rebranding shortly, but for today, that's who I am. My background is PhD work at the University of Toronto and work in both developmental disability, mental health and addictions, and for the last quarter century, acquired brain injury. Our job this morning is to give you, in the briefest of overviews, a sense of what our agency does, and finally to turn to, I guess, and ask for your help. But I will explain the what, the why, and how we are saying that as regards the services and resources for the citizens, your friends, and their family members here in Brampton. PhD ABI is about a quarter century old. In the regions of Peel, Halton, and Dufferin, we are the sole local health integration network and ministry funded agency that serves everyone touched by acquired brain injury. Now, once you're out of hospital and a neurotrauma unit, you're either in our care somewhere or you're receiving no care. I don't know if this kind of thing is allowed, and I don't know whether I'm stepping over a line, but to quickly know that I know that you understand what we are talking about today. How many members of Committee of Council know someone or has had a child or has had a friend who has sustained even the most minor of concussion in a sports incident or sports accident? Most minor of concussion. Thank you. Anyone who's had a loved one, a family member, or a friend's family member suffer a stroke over the last decade? Hands, please, if it could. Those people who know someone who's been involved in a reasonably significant automobile accident? Please. Finally, that's almost everybody. I need you to know that, in fact, concussion is a mild to moderate brain injury, that the greatest tsunami facing the health system is an incredible prevalence of cognitive damage that comes as a result of stroke, which is rendering a lot of our LTCs unable to look after the people who are in them. And in this province, between 50 and 60% of all brain injuries are received by those who in fact have been involved in vehicular accident. But the things that are threatening the system horrifically and are underserved are the ends of the extreme, from concussion to stroke, and what it is going to present to us all in terms of the challenge to our communities. Next slide, please. I'm going to take only seconds with all this material because it is in the packets we have left. Of course, we welcome observations and questions, and just so you know who you'll be directing those to, I'm going to take 15 seconds to introduce the members, some of the members of our team here today. Fabio DeCudo and Mariam Youssef. Case management or clinical work in seniors, SIL, and social media. SIL, support independent living for those who can't otherwise without supports live in their community. Opal McKenzie, a case manager with specialization in case management as it relates to mental health, addictions, and corrections. Navjot Gurn, the day leader who runs out of our Mississauga offices what has been judged by the ministry the best day service and psychosocial services program for ABI in the province. Anvia Ure, responsible for program coordination and behavioral program coordination in particular. Cassie Kent, our quality lead. Rob Zargalis, our community liaison. These people typify 200 people who work to and for and on behalf of the people we've discussed in these regions. All of our staff are rehabilitators and educators, and I will tell you what it is we are educating as we move very quickly again through the sequelae that come of brain injury. Next slide, please. Next. Bingo. Yeah. ABI statistics. Again, this is in your package. Most people don't realize that because of the kind of conditions I've been speaking about, stroke, embolism, accident, injury, industrial accident, self-harm, overdose, concussion, the kind of incredible prevalence. But some of the facts there, when given people, usually leave them breathless. I will leave them with you. But the prevalence of ABI is huge, and the science of serving ABI under health and social services is less than 25 years old. And the reason, of course, is neuroscience is now saving people that 25 years ago would be dead. And we are understanding more and more the needs of those with mild and moderate, who present like you and I. And you would meet them in a bar, and you wouldn't know. But you would know in that you introduce yourself by name to them 3 times over your first drink. And then you realize that this is a perfectly reasonably presenting person, invisible to the world in terms of their disability, who nevertheless has an attention span of 12 to 15 seconds by virtue of their injury. Next slide, please. Changes after brain injury. Again, while in your package, the 2 things that present the greatest impediment, the greatest pain for families, and the greatest dissociation for individuals. Cognitive, our thinking. Very often, and certainly those of you who've experienced this or know of this, in an automobile accident, one of the first things that happens is that's your executive locus for control. Out of that comes your ability to plan, to organize, to militate, to prioritize, to serve memory, and then in fact is also control and impulsivity. The last time you were followed by somebody too closely in a car, and after following you too closely, at the next light they bumped your bumper, it's a human reaction to think, I could kill that guy. The problem with ABI, there is no blocker on the thing that tells you normally, yes, but you shouldn't do that. And so that move to violence or impulsivity can occur like that.
Al, you've gone over the limit. I'm going to need a motion to extend. Did you do it? Okay, to begin. Thanks. I didn't hear.
Thank you. Overview of our services, please. What we offer and provide across all our regions, from comprehensive treatment beds to independent beds, to partnership with mental health, mammoth day services programs, seniors programs. Right now in Mississauga alone, we are in roughly 24 LTCs, making sure that people with an ABI there remain stable and manageable enough in terms of their behavior that they don't get kicked out of or not accepted by an LTC, and caregiver services that are huge and cut across behavioral consultation. We are one of the 2 largest community-based organizations for ABI in the country. Brampton is, I need to let you know, underserved and under-resourced as an element of history and of practice and the incredible growth of Brampton. Next slide. Community service, yeah, let's go. Community service, that's all right. We're trying to work to your schedule. We're trying very hard to work to your schedule. Community services, you will see a gamut. And you will see that except for that lucky 30 to 40 people who are in one of our partnered beds or assisted living beds, through which there is always a flow-through and a period of rehab, because you can retrain the brain. We offer lifelong services around all these pieces, particularly including caregivers, who in this province right now are now aging to the point that if somebody doesn't better shore up their need to look after their loved one, they're going to fall to their knees. Next slide, please. We've now booted, with the help of the Mississauga Halton Lynn, concussion services across all our regions. Something that is scaring everybody, and while it's not a terribly good film, it is a very powerful film. And if you haven't seen Will Smith's Concussion, what occurs in there as a consequence of not treating concussion properly is in fact quite correct. Next, thanks, Cass. What we would like and what we are moving to develop much more in Brampton. Brampton desperately needs assisted living and partnered supports for people who live here. You desperately need even more psychosocial and support groups in this community. The problem is our nearest locus point for your members of your community is our offices in Mississauga. Not unreasonable. Brampton deserves them here. We've recently acquired some RGIs through SHIP at the Hanson Building. There is still an obscene wait list for people who are with their families right now. Their families are buckling. We are in conversations with the ministry and the LIN to try to secure more. I'm going to tell you why we need these numbers and why we need to do this. This is just a very quick now, and then I'm turning you over to people who can speak to their cause much better than I can. The prevalence, statistics, and injuries here in Brampton then mean that right now in this city, roughly 6,500 to 7,000 of your neighbors and friends have been touched by ABI in a palpable way. Every year, another 1,600 are being so touched. Now that includes, though, from the mildest to the most incredibly severe. Of those yearly, 50 to 60 are left profoundly disabled and with profound cognitive and behavioral issues. We serve about 100 clients in Brampton, clients and their families in Brampton right now, and have on wait lists between another 100 to 150 more. So I know what you're thinking. Where's the other 8,000? I'll tell you where they are. They're at homes with families who can barely look after them. One or both caregivers have left their work to be able to. They are homeless. They are badly placed in LTC, where 31-year-olds are in a dementia ward with 70-year-olds. They're in corrections, where there's a 50% correlation between brain injury and, finally, those people end up being served in corrections. Or they're on the street. That's not okay for any of us. We are failing this community to the extent to which we've been able to deploy resources here. We are asking in the future for all the things we are asking of our ministry, our LINs, just to know that council believes in what it is we are trying to do, and there is nobody who can tell that story for us better than some of the people who have been touched by their injuries. Ladies and gentlemen, our clients and families of PHD ABI.
Acquired brain injury services family for 10 years.
After my breakthrough, everything seemed lost because PhD had been people.
PhD accepted our daughter when no other facility could manage her specific medical and psychological needs due to her brain injury.
And when I'm down and out and I come here, I feel something what PhD used to be.
And we are in the fabulous time.
PhD gives me a better quality of life.
They've been a lifesaver for my husband and myself. It does so much for so many people.
From a personal perspective, it has been a godsend to me. Very thankful and grateful to have in my life.
I am relieved with the work that the agency offers, knowing that there's somebody that cares for my mom as much as I do.
It has restored my faith, my passion, my determination.
It's a unique place like no other, a place I call my second home.
For the efforts of everybody at Faith, we struggled mightily with my husband's condition. And, he's at a stage now where we are seeing glimpses of hope.
10 years ago almost, my son had a stroke. And I don't know what I would have done without the service. I started waking up and seeing there's a life, somebody's going to help me. If it wasn't for this, I wouldn't be alive today, I don't think.
Joe Halton Dufferin acquired brain injury services in one word is amazing.
It's encouraging.
They're helpful.
Without the support, I would not be where I am today. I know that for a fact. I don't know what I would do without
everything instead of lightness. It's safe.
I want to say, Andy, thank you for my time.
For helping our family.
Our sincere thanks again to the Committee of Council for this opportunity. And if any of you care to reach out to get more information or to know any piece of our mission, we would welcome it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Al. Councillor Moore.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your presentation and taking the opportunity to raise awareness. It's always good when we're more informed and more educated. I would recommend that you reach out to the region of Peel.
Yes.
The region of Peel, responsible for health and human services, I think is probably a more appropriate forum to seek partnerships on how we might advance the good work that you do in the community. And you may be aware that the City of Mississauga with the Town of Caledon, the City of Brampton are hosting a forum on the fair share for Peel.
Yes.
You talk about Brampton being underserved with regard to acquired brain injury, but you join a whole host of other services and programs that Peel falls dramatically short of other communities.
Absolutely agree.
I think if you do reach out and do a presentation at the region, I think that we should have other agencies come forward and just sort of build up to the forum in the fall, where we raise awareness and educate the community on what the real needs are in Peel.
By way of reference, Peel has been very good to us for a lot of the support, like our housing units and various allocations in some of the projects, and we've got some incredible partners with both the region and with Peel. That said, I know that an awful lot of the questions, an awful lot of the curiosity, an awful lot of the concern from community can't help but move through these circles somehow. So it can't hurt for you to know that. But yes, you are absolutely right.
But thank you, and thank you for saying that about the region of Peel. It's great to hear, and for the community to hear how supportive they have been, but they can't do it alone, and they do need a strong provincial partner to move our community forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Jeffrey?
Thank you for coming, and thank you to your team for coming. I would say that most people don't understand brain injury, so I think the video is very, very helpful. The fact that you can't see it is one of those challenges for everybody to understand the spectrum of how difficult and challenging it is, not just for the individual, but for the caregivers. So in my former life as an MPP, I remember having some caregivers come and see me, and I think we made some progress, but the challenge has always been for us in Brampton is that the numbers aren't right down at the province. So that's part of the issue. I think the census data is really going to help us, but certainly last Monday when I went to see the Premier, I did talk about healthcare funding in Brampton and the fact that if the numbers aren't right, nothing else is right from a healthcare perspective. So we've made some progress on childcare funding, mental health funding, certainly in Brampton, but we still have a ways to go on this particular file. So I'm curious, I presume you have seen the MPPs recently to talk about this, because this is a budget issue at every budget.
Some, yes, and have had an intersection point with some, but could do a lot more. And interestingly, when you mentioned mental health, ABI is one of those things that provincially historically has moved under mental health, then back under CSS, and then back out again. Right now, provincially, we are mental health for the ministry managed programs. We are CSS for our LINs, which means the right person to ask for more money and resources isn't even clear.
No.
I can't tell you how much fun that is.
No,
Yeah.
you're an orphan. There's a few that are orphans like that. So my offer to you is I have been fairly vocal about this particular issue. I'm happy to speak with you, beside you on this particular issue. Not too long ago, this council supported making sure that there were beds for youth in Brampton because we didn't have any beds. And I think we've been successful before because the evidence shows that there is a population here and that the funding formula wasn't correct before. And I think based on what Councillor Moore has said, I think we're willing to seek the support of our colleagues at the region to have a more fulsome conversation, and certainly I'm happy to support you at the province of Ontario to make sure the numbers start to reflect the kind of services we need here in Brampton. And thank you for being here today.
Very much. That means a lot.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Councillor Dillon?
First, thank you so much for coming, and just even for the just for the members around the table, my council colleagues, I had an opportunity to go to the site where you guys serve these people who have these injuries, and I just want to say the work that you guys do is it's amazing. I had Navjot give me a tour of the building. I had to see some of the patients there as well, and it's very interesting. It's very it was an experience for me that put life in perspective, you could say, because there's so many people living with these injuries, and as a person who is generally healthy, you go about your life every day, day to day, and you go through your routine. But these people have the same routine. Sometimes, like you said, they have a 12 to 15 minute cycle, I guess, where everything refreshes. They can't go further than that in terms of like their memory. And so, it did put things into perspective, and I just want to say you guys are doing such a great job. And I think the mayor had mentioned as well, and Councillor Moore, that I think at the region, you guys had some discussions there. But there's a question I have, perhaps even for Harry, Mr. Schlang. Is there an opportunity for the city to perhaps assist? Or is this simply something that the region, because I know the health is obviously to the region, but is there an opportunity for the city to maybe assist the service?
I mean, the region is funded for health, not the municipality, but that doesn't mean we don't make our colleagues of the region staff aware, and I know regional councillors are making everyone aware.
Absolutely.
So, and you have directed us to think more bigger as far as a single tier, so we probably should be aware of the numbers and help you move the region forward.
No, thanks so much, and I appreciate you guys coming down today. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd also like to thank you for coming. It wasn't too long ago when somebody got a serious head injury. It was kind of one of those things where the doctors would say, keep an eye on it. If you have any of these type of signs, come back and let me know. I think the society now recognizes, particularly in the sports world, how serious this really is. And we notice in the sports world, you just see it recently in hockey, in the playoffs going on, that this is not something that they take lightly anymore. Where years ago, even when I was coaching, nobody ever, said to me or showed me what to look for if one of my kids got a bad head injury. And of course, we don't have doctors in the audience or even nurses in the audience. We may have one, maybe lucky we have one. None of my parents were. So that's the type of thing in sport they really should be, stressing, I guess, to the coaches, referees, and all that kind of stuff when a child gets hurt. I have somebody in my family who suffered 5 concussions over the years, and I recognize the first one because I had a concussion myself when I was younger in an industrial accident. But other people didn't recognize the symptoms that's going on. And once you have one, the rest come easy, unfortunately. And we all see that if we're watching the playoffs with Sidney Crosby and the initial one that he had. And every time he gets a serious hit. People make fun of him, but they shouldn't, because it's a very serious thing when it happens. So I'm really glad that you're here, making us more aware of it. And as Councillor Moore said, you should do that at the region. And I think our role maybe in this, because we don't have the funding, is to help try to put the awareness out. We all have web pages and things like that. If you send us something that we can have our assistants put on our web pages, I know Councillor Moore and I would be pleased to have our assistant put it out on our web page and try to make people more aware of what to look for and how to recognize bad head injuries, whether they be within sports, within work, within car accidents, like you said. The awareness is going to be utmost of importance, and it is helping, but it's not there yet.
Well, June is ABI Awareness Month nationally, so we'd be very happy. We will send the calendar, and we're considered by the Ontario Brain Injury Association as champions of the community agencies. We would love to send you all the events, the information kiosks, how people can access more information. Very pleased to. And you're absolutely right. It's that awareness piece that really we were here to hope and to engender. So thank you, sir. Perfect. It means a lot.
Thank you very much. Councillor Moore, would you like to move receipt of the delegation? All in favor? Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. On behalf of our clients and their families, thank you sincerely.
Our next delegation is John Scalia, Vice President of Rep Softball, Brampton Girls Softball Association. I hope I pronounced your last name right there.
It's Scalia, but don't worry about it. I've been called worse than that. I really want to thank you guys, distinguished members of council, Mayor Jeffrey. As I said, my name is John Scalia. I represent the Brampton Girls Softball Association as VP of Rep, which is under the Blazers umbrella. I'm really pleased to announce, guys, that we've been awarded the U14 National Championships as well as the Women's Open National Championships. The Women's National Open Championship will feature young ladies from 18 to 20, they can actually be up to any age, that will represent Canada in the Olympics in Japan. So we're really excited about those two events. But before we get into the event, really want to give you guys a brief history of the BGSA is what we call ourselves. It's the Brampton Girls Softball Association, obviously, and how we represent the city and how I really feel that we do it in a very positive light. It's been consecutively run for 45 years. We participate in all three branches of softball, House League, Select, and Rep Ball. I can say with 100% confidence that we are the premier league in Ontario. We have multiple national championships. We have numerous provincial championships. I was honored to be up in that tower watching our little 12-year-old girls come back in the 7th inning of the final game in provincials last year, down 4 runs, and they blew it wide open and won. Seeing those faces is one of the reasons why we do it. Our league is run 100% by volunteers. Our cost structure is such that 100%, and I mean 100% of all fees paid, and they are the lowest in the province, by the way, are directed to our members. I can't fathom before this, I worked, I went home, I took care of my kids. You can't fathom the amount of work that is involved in managing, the BGSA that we do. We work tirelessly. We do everything possible. I'm going to talk about a tournament we ran last week, and basically I just recovered. But I get asked all the time, why do we do it? We're crazy. I don't know. But it's for the girls. Every decision we make now, we've actually come with a mission statement. It is pretty clear. Through sport, changing, nurturing, and developing our fine young women. And we want to emphasize that. These are young women. It's not as prevalent in sport, but we want to emphasize that we work with young women. And we want to build them into pillars of our community. That's really our goal. I've been part of the association now for 6 years. I coached at the higher levels before, and pretty much all of our girls end up going to post-secondary education. I am very, very certain, I don't have any scientific evidence to quote it, but we will have higher rates of kids going to post-secondary than outside it. You really do learn focus with what we do because it's a very dedicated program. We're really happy about that. We've changed some things in the last few years, and we really emphasize with coaches now that we want you to always teach the fundamentals of fast pitch, but we have to go beyond that. We are teaching life lessons And every day, we need to emphasize that. Win or lose, we're teaching life lessons. And I'm really proud of that direction that we've taken. You know, we represent the city as I believe as well as you possibly can. I help run a pharmaceutical company. To me, image is very important. How you portray yourself, what you do, and how you represent what you represent. We've instilled a message. We've instilled in our coaches selection committee that, you know, you've got to make sure we're representing Brampton. We travel, you know, throughout the northeast U.S. We have some teams going to Denver, some in budgets that go to L.A. Brampton is on the shirt. We have to represent ourselves that way. We have the lowest level of you know, issues and incidences of abhorrent behavior, which I'm really, really proud of. And we, you know, it's a mandate. We will remove coaches that we feel are not representing us as well as they can. I'm sorry, I'm going to go a little bit over. Is that okay? I just saw the 4-minute
I get a
clock.
motion to allow them to go a little bit over. Thank you.
Okay, I won't be
Favor,
really
that
over, I
carries.
promise.
Go ahead.
I can't talk that much. Softball Canada looks to us as a league and as a city to best represent Ontario. We've successfully hosted the following events. The Three Nations Cup, which is a precursor to the 2000 Olympics, U18 National Championship in 2009, and I was proudly a member of all of these ones here. The U14 National Championships of 12, the U16 of 214, the granddaddy of them all was the 2013 World Junior Championships. To put that in perspective, this little league of 800 kids ran the equivalent in our sport of the World Hockey Championships that are run over Christmas. Now, not to the same scale, obviously, but we did that. I was so proud of our city and us, the way we represented everything. If you were there at the Canada-US game at the fairgrounds, our estimations were there between 3,000 and 4,000 people there. It was electric. And, you know, we really had that down-home feel. It made my day. I was treasurer at the time. I was very worried about running the event. We had a visionary running us at the time, and I always told him, you know, you're the kind of person where you build it and hope they come. It scared me, but his vision was correct and did a great thing. Annually, we hold a local tournament in Brampton. It's the biggest in Ontario. It's been since I've been here. We had 67 teams over the weekend throughout facilities all across our area. It's a break-even thing for us. We may make a few dollars, but we do budget to break even. We don't ask the city for anything on that. That's our give back. We have numerous teams staying for overnights in hotels. We schedule games so they kind of have to stay in between 2 and 1 so that they've got to go somewhere for lunch or dinner. You know, we really do try to represent our city. We've never asked for anything in kind for that. Again, I feel that that's a bit of our give back. Okay, now the fun stuff. So we're going to be hosting between 30 and 35 of the best teams in the country. They'll be coming to Brampton to win. It's a fantastic event. The open event will have between 10 and 15 teams coming in, you know, as I said, from various parts of the country. Simply put, they're the best players in their age. The best players in Canada will be there. And Brampton has a team that can win it. They are that good. They won provincials numerous times under the umbrella, and I know that team quite well. They are incredible. All games for the open division is going to be at South Fletcher's. The U14 is really very impactful economically and beneficial for everybody. A lot more teams come. When parents of 14-year-olds come here and they're going to Canadian Championships, they travel with their grandparents, they travel with their kids, they travel with a lot of people, and they bring in a lot of benefit to the city. We have run a STEAM impact study. It looks like it'll generate 3 million plus of economic activity for the province, 16.5 jobs for the city of Brampton, 22 jobs for the remainder of the province, net GDP to Brampton of $823,000, and $135,000 plus of tax benefit. We were awarded this after your COB grant deadline. To put it simply, you know, we are looking for some in-kind services from Brampton. All we're really looking for, we're not looking for any cash in hand. All we're really looking for is to cover in-kind services that you provide that will help us offset that. The 18-year-old event is something that is very difficult to break even on, simply because of the number of teams and the way it's run. It is an expensive venture, but we really do believe that we add value to bringing these events to Brampton. We're not it's not a very big amount. We're not asking for, six figures. We're just asking for, the diamonds to be taken care of, barricade fencing, washrooms in place, everything that'll make our city up in front and look great for the events. And hopefully not having to pay for that. That's really all we're looking for. We have a 5-year plan. We want to bring the U18s back to Brampton again. We want to bring the World Junior Championships back to 2021. The ISF, which is the International Softball Federation, and Softball Canada felt we did such a good job with those events. They keep asking me to bring them back, right? We've got to make sure that it works with the city and everything else. We have the best diamonds in the city. Your group, led by Linda, you can't find a better group to deal with. Their backbone is great. They will stand up to you and say no, but they offer the services and they let you know what they can and can't do. I want to thank you guys for your time. I really appreciate it. We play at the fairgrounds pretty much every week. Love you guys to come down and watch these young ladies play. You'd be amazed how good they are, right? I'm in a good mood. We beat our arch rival Halton last night, so thanks again for your time, everybody.
Okay, thank you, John. I do have a speaker. I will remind committee that we don't have a staff report here, and our policy is to refer back to staff. John, you are leaving this a little bit late.
I am.
You didn't mention it, but the championship is August 16th to the 20th?
Correct.
And now you're asking staff to supply something, so we're going to have to refer that back to staff. That's council policy to do that, and let staff come back.
Okay. No, fair.
And Councillor Frattini?
Thank you, John. You said you play in the fairgrounds on what day? Sunday?
Our house league has the fairgrounds on Monday, and our rep teams play Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights, Thursday nights. We will have various tournaments during the year, but our big granddaddy tournament was last weekend. You will find nights where, because of conflicts with where the team is playing, that they may not be there that night, but you'll find girls in the fairgrounds pretty much Monday to Friday from May 5th until the end of closure at the end of September.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Williams?
And just quickly, thank you for coming. Just a little while ago, we inducted somebody in the Hall of Fame, Kelly Craig, which is a testament to your program.
That's correct.
Quick question, has she had her baby yet?
I don't know. I'm going to be quite honest with you. I don't know Kelly. Okay. So I couldn't answer that, which is odd because I know almost all of them. But you got me on a name that I don't know, so I really don't want to guess. I see that happening in the U.S., and I'm not doing that here.
Kelly has quite a record of baseball in Brampton.
How old is Kelly?
Okay, we're not back and forth.
Because that may help age me in terms of where I was.
I can't wait to see how the clerk puts this conversation in the minutes.
I'm going to try to find out who Kelly is and what she had and get back to you, Doug.
Do that offline with Councillor. Yeah. Mayor Jeffrey.
I just want to say thanks. I love your passion, I love your enthusiasm, and you're right. Those young people are our future, and they are successful, and they're becoming the brand of Brampton. We have some great athletes, and it's as a result of people like you, and I know you get paid big bucks to do the job that you do, and the fact that you put so many hours into our young people is exemplary. So thank you very much. I look forward to the report coming back and hopefully a positive outcome.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate everybody's time.
Thank you.
John, I'm going to ask you a very quick question to take advantage of the last delegation being here, and unfortunately they've left, but I'm going to do this to every sports group now that comes forward. Does your group do anything to make your coaches and trainers aware of head injuries and things like that? It's
starting to, yes. There are online policies now with Softball Ontario that we're mandated to take and our parents are mandated to take. It's really not enough, I'm going to be honest with you. My daughter, who went through the program, is no longer part of it. Most of us in the executive had kids that were in it, and we just loved it and stayed. But she's had 3 pretty good concussions. So I'm aware of that, and the last one was you're in your room for a week in the dark. Like it's scary. We're working towards that. We recognize that. We try to instill in all of our coaches, do the right thing, not the thing to win. It's hard. I'll tell you, it's hard because we've really changed our mandate. We've changed how we want to win, but we're not a win-at-all-costs association anymore. We've got to recognize that, you know, these children, again, like I said, the biggest thing I'm proud of is that I follow these girls who are in university, that are in the States on partial scholarships, that are just, you know, going to school. I give my daughter as an example. She had an opportunity to take a scholarship, but she wants to be a teacher in Ontario. And, you know, I think ball taught her to say, you know, I want to go to school and play ball. I don't want to play ball to have to go to school, which I was really proud of her for that comment. But I follow these kids everywhere.
You said earlier you wouldn't talk too much. Well, you sure do.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you do a good job.
I can go.
That's not a criticism. You do a good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
And there's a lot of groups out there who would be happy to provide material that could be forwarded to coaches and things like that.
We'd love that.
Injuries. Good. Yeah. Councillor Teen, would you like to move a motion to refer this back to staff? Thank you. All in favor? That carries. Thank you, John. Mr. Chair, do you want me to finish the rest of my community services, or it goes back to you?
We're going to deal with Mr. Beasley first.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
We're going to deal with Mr. Beasley. He's going to do a presentation under corporate services. So I'll pass it over to Councillor Dillon to chair this presentation.
Before Mr. Beasley joins us, I would just like to say good morning all, and thank you Mayor Jeffrey and Chair Williams and other members of council. It's a pleasure to be here again, and particularly I'd like to thank Councillor Moore for your warm introduction on Monday night at at committee meeting rather. It was a pleasure to be there and I enjoyed that. So I'd like to what I would like to do is, before I introduce Mr. Beasley, is actually just speak generally about kind of where we're going with our planning vision. But before stating that, this is day 3 on the job for me here at the City of Brampton. But I would like to state that I've been very warmly welcomed by not only members of council, but by staff as well. It's been a fantastic place, and I feel that I've hit the ground running. And we've got a great starting point here. So one thing I've observed, and I've been able to meet most of the staff in the planning department, is that we've got a lot of talent here and a lot of passion and dedication. So I'm really looking forward to this team and getting things moving. A strong team will really be the foundation of a great planning function. And I believe that we have the skills needed to make this a future-ready city. As Councillor Moore noted, I was born and raised here in Brampton. I've spent most of my career working just down the street at the Region of Peel in the community. I'm very excited about being part of the team here at Brampton, and I believe that the community is at a pivotal point with an incredibly bright future ahead of us. I've had the luxury of growing up here and seeing firsthand all the challenges and opportunities that are presented in such a rapidly growing community. Right now, I see great things happening and a lot of important things that are right at the doorstep of Brampton that can change our future. I'd like to give Council credit for adopting the strat plan, which included the game changers. Now, I'm not going to get into each of the game changers today, but specifically I would like to address the planning vision. I believe it's imperative that the community, council, and staff all understand the possibilities of the future for the City of Brampton. I'm not talking about an official plan or a zoning document. What I'm talking about is an understanding, a passion, a feeling, and an excitement about what the near future brings for our residents. This vision will be owned by the community. It'll help guide decision-making, not just within the planning department, but across the organization. We have great opportunities available to us right now. A new university, changing needs and expectations of our residents, an incredible shift in our modal split from over to transit. We've got more urban spaces and amenities that we can develop. Brampton has greenfield left to develop. We've got urban spaces and we've got suburban areas that can obviously see some opportunities as well. In fact, what we've got in Brampton is everything. Doing things differently in the future will support healthier lifestyles. It'll support the ability to maintain in your own community as you age. It will also allow for less time in commuting and give families more time with each other. And in fact, what I would like to see is experiences right here in Brampton that keep people here. And in fact, not only keep our residents here, but attract people into Brampton to enjoy our amenities. Creating such a planning vision, though, is not a simple task. So we are very fortunate to have Mr. Larry Beasley join us as an advisor. Larry's incredible international experiences will be of great asset to us as we develop this bold, innovative, and forward-looking plan for the city. We will create an environment that others will watch and aspire to. Larry has a track record of successful city transformations around the world, and I know he's just as excited as I am to be part of this transformation. I'd like to now introduce and pass it over to Mr. Beasley, but first off, again, I would like to thank you all, council, staff, and others for such a warm welcome over the past couple of days. Mr. Beasley?
Thank you, Rob. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Worship, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to work with you and the people of Brampton on developing a new planning vision for the community. I thought it was very interesting that you have already decided that this is key for your future. You have a lot of plans, you have a very well structured regulatory system, but you know that you have to be thinking to the future, you have to be thinking differently about what Brampton needs to be, and I thought that was very good. You have a lot of assets to work with. I've only been here a day and a half, but I've already started to see them. This morning as I came in from Mississauga, I crossed the boundary and I saw flowers and I saw landscape and I saw nice housing and I saw a lot of livability and quality. And I think those things really are going to be very important for your future. And I was also impressed that you're reorganizing your government to be ready for the transformation that you face. These numbers on your transformation are pretty extraordinary. And that you have those game changers, and they've already started affecting our thinking. But I think you want, when we do develop a vision, a planning vision for you, for us to go further. I think you want us to start talking in a lot more detail about the shape, the nature, the character, and the differentiated identity of Brampton, so that as you become bigger, you can start to take on those big city issues, the challenges that you know are there, without losing the qualities that have drawn so many people to you already. You have a great, you just saw an example of, an extraordinary, enthusiastic community, and they're here because they want to be in this place rather than some other part of the GTA. And our job is to really give some substance and trajectory to your transformation. It's also to bring things together so there's more synergies. It's not just a lot of actions happening, but that they really create something new and something different. And we've come to understand there's two reasons for that. One is that you want to offer your people something new. You want to offer them, I think, some qualities that they won't be able to get elsewhere in the GTA, a better experience of community living than they would find elsewhere, more close-in jobs, more harmony with nature, less economic risk, more soul and pride in this place. And I think a home base that reflects specifically who they are and who they want to be, not just, a home base that for another one of the 5 million people that live in this region. And I think that's going to create value for them, and I think it's going to create value for you as well. But there is something more you can do. I have to tell you, and I work all over Canada, Canadian cities are not doing all that well in the world of cities. Canadian suburbs are part of the reason we're not doing well. Yet 60% of Canadians are choosing the suburbs, not the core cities, because they like the qualities out here, and frankly, they don't like the core cities. And they don't like the answers that are coming out of the core cities. But there's nowhere in this country where suburbs, a suburb, is saying, how could we do our job differently to deliver on some of the big issues that are out there in the world? Issues like, livability, quality livability, issues like sustainability, issues like economic competitiveness and resilience. How could we do that in the image of suburban life, not importing those big city answers? And I think you may be positioned, because of your government, because of your people, because of you, and because of some other things, some lucky things, to be able to be an exemplar for other Canadian cities. And that goes beyond just your people. You might help us change the country. And I will tell you that that is the biggest urban issue facing the country right now. is how to make our suburbs meet higher qualities in these big issues of the day. I work in the Nordic countries, for example. They are way ahead of us on innovation in cities, on making their cities sustainable and livable. But, you know, we need to do that too. That's why I'm here, because I think you might do it before most other suburbs that I know about in this country. Our job is really to sketch the image for what that transformation might look like. And we want to do that with a few thousand hands, but also with your leadership, a lot of the leadership here in the city. First, we want to reach out to your people. We want to talk about different options for the future with them, get their ideas, and that'll all come together into this expression of a vision. I don't even know for sure what the shape of it is yet. I've only been looking at it for a few hours. But it will, in fact, be based on the people and their ideas for what this city should be like. And then we want to come back and we want to work with you as the leaders. We want to work with your organization as the managers of change to make sure that what the municipality needs also reflects what the people need and vice versa, and we reconcile those differences. And then we want to test all of that against the capacities that you have as an organization and the preferred way that you like to do business in your city, and offer advice about laws and organizations and processes that would put you in a better position to be able to achieve the vision that your people have come up with. And then when we're ready, we're going to bring it back to you, and we're going to give it to you. Hopefully you can embrace it. But we're also going to then turn it over to your organization, because it'll be your organization that has to make it happen over time. I'd like to tell you what's in the vision, but I can't because it's going to come from your people. But I will tell you a few things. Just from our work elsewhere in the world, we're pretty sure that this vision is going to say a lot about designing your city in the future rather than having it happen by accident. Elsewhere in the world, people are finding when we start to design our cities, we're creating a lot more wealth, we're expediting change in a positive way, and we're building new markets, literally building new markets. So I think it'll be about design. By the same token, I think there will be some other issues that are coming to the fore. I'm already hearing those issues. Placemaking as a central way that you define your city, diversification to express the incredible, marvelous diversity that's already in this city, complete communities, a suitable scale, a scale that works in this part of a region like this, not in downtown Toronto, population magnets, because I believe, and I think you're going to discover, that the more you can draw people, the more you will also draw jobs and capital and other aspects that will create your economy. Green performance, which we will have to make an important part of this agenda. And what I like to call the local versus the regional. There is a regional story. It gives a Toronto image. Toronto steals most of that image. The local story has to be different. It has to be yours. And that's what I think we're going to try to do. I can't tell you much beyond that because we haven't had the conversation yet. This is my first chance to talk to you. I'm looking forward to working with you. But I have to say, honestly, I'm looking more forward to working with the people out there on the street in Brampton. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Do we have any... Councilor Moore, you have a question?
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming to Brampton, for agreeing to be an advisor to us so that we can move into the future a little differently than what we see in the rearview mirror. As the chair of planning, I've been kind of quite vocal, I think, of late. We've planned the city, when you do look in the rearview mirror, on an application by application basis. And it's not that each individual application in and of itself is a bad application. It's been measured against, legislation and policies and urban design, and it looks great on the application. But when you start putting all the applications together, it's like those pictures that you don't know what it is until you stand back and stare at it and something emerges. What's emerged is something that I think we all agree could have been better. So rather than planning our city on an application by application basis, we need to take a different approach. I've also, and I haven't had the chance to sit down to our day 3 commissioner yet, But I think as we introduce into our existing neighborhoods, when we are doing some infill projects or adaptive reuses and things like that, the planners actually have to go out and stand in the space and actually feel whether or not the application is a good application and doesn't just meet all the check marks on the criteria. What I see as a major obstacle moving forward is that we can talk about change, and everybody knows that nobody likes change. They like it once it's happened, or most do. I think what's going to be vitally important is how you arm the political arm of the organization with the tools that they need to feel confident when they stand up in front of a community and say, we're going to change something, and it's going to be for the better, and my arm is going to go in the air, even though the council chambers are full of people who say, we don't want that change. And so nothing will change unless there's the confidence around this table, and we get that from our staff, and we'll get that from you as an advisor. So I put that out there as something that is really going to be the diode that I talked about last week in the bus to get it going. A lot of the folks in my family moved to Brampton in 1964, and they moved here for, my father was transferred up here with Ford Motor Company. That's how we ended up here. But others came to Brampton for different reasons. It's because they didn't want to live in the core city. And when we start talking about a community of 1 million people, and we're going to become a core city, people feel uneasy about that. So how we get there and how we move the community in the political arm, I don't think it's going to be a challenge to convince staff to move in that direction, but we work together in getting there. So thank you. I am really excited about the future of Brampton, having called it home since 1964. Raised my kids and grandkids born here, so you gave me goosebumps, Rob, when you spoke about growing up in Brampton and the opportunities that this city has to offer to its residents. We haven't done a really good job of touting our own horn about the wonderful stuff that's here. And when you hear people come and visit our city and talk about how beautiful it was, and last year during the 55-plus games, when people from across the country came to visit us and talked about all the wonderful things we had here in Brampton, it's a reminder. And unfortunate that people who don't live here have to remind us about the good things that we have. So, thank you.
If I just make one point, I think the important thing about doing a vision on top of the normal business as usual is that we can give you something that business as usual doesn't give you very much, and that's a constituency of people who will be out there behind you, not because they have a definition of change which is their own definition, but because they now have a definition of change which has a lot of things they want in it. Building that constituency is how we've actually made change in the other cities that I've worked in. It's sort of convincing you, but actually it's not. It's more convincing the people on the street who do start as skeptics. But when you start a conversation about change, that conversation all immediately goes to their interests and what they might want. And when people start feeling one another's interests, they start feeling a community, and you build from there. And the idea is to build a constituency that then backs you up as you move forward.
That's true, because all we hear usually are the dissenting voices, which we know instinctively is not the majority.
Having been in local government for almost 40 years, I get that.
And you sympathize, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilor Medeiros.
Chair, welcome, Mr. Beasley. I wish you good luck. When you talk about a planning vision, one of the integral parts I would say is public transit. And one of the trends that you find, and it's been happening for years, is that development usually follows where public transit goes. So to the point where even developers will come and they'll try to identify where LRTs are going or where buses are going. Can you tell me how important it is in terms of our public transit, and when we're here in the region trying to build that regional transportation network, how important it is and integral it is to a planning vision? So if you don't get the public transit right, that might undermine what the planning vision might be. Can you just tell me how important in public transit is into supporting and planning vision?
Well, movement, period. Public transit, but also all kinds of movement are essential to any vision. Fortunately, here in the region, you have one of the best concepts for regional travel that's in the country. If any of you have seen my book, we use your example here in Toronto as one of the better urban grids for public transit and for moving around in a more intelligent way. And secondly, you've already identified it as one of the things you're putting emphasis on as your game changers. So in a sense, my first reaction is you're in pretty good shape on that. What we've got to put together with that is your idea of these city centers and what they're going to look like and how they link up. Ultimately, there's a great thinker, Sir Peter Hall in Britain, who talks about cities, regions like ours, as this region is, where there are different cities with different personalities, and they're actually all linked by public transit in the end. And that's what we got to get down to, a simple model, that's where we cluster things, and then we don't put things elsewhere. We actually create another image for elsewhere. And it is the image that I think is going to help here in the non-core part of Toronto. It's an image of quieter communities. It's an image of less moving around. It's an energy of walking and biking. It's the alternative to that large regional movement system. That's the part I don't see very well here. And that's the part I think we'll probably end up emphasizing in this vision to echo, I would say, and contrast with what already is a pretty good regional transportation view, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your presentation. Thank you so much. Can we get, Councilor Mears, would you like to move receipt? All in favor? Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Dunham. We'll now move back to the Public Works and Engineering section of the agenda. We have no staff presentations. We have one report and correspondence, and the correspondence, will move that up to the report. Report from G. Perez Miller, Traffic Operation Technologist, Public Works and Engineering, dated March 27th, 2017, re-parking, stopping, related issues in the various wards, wards 1, 7, 8, and 9. Does anybody have any questions on this for staff? Seeing none, could I get maybe Councilor Fortini, could you make a motion to approve the report? All in favor? Thank you, it's carried. I will now, any council question period under Public Works? Seeing none, I will now move the chair over to Councillor Gibson for Community Service section of this agenda. Do we want to go there? Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
Okay, committee, we have item 6.2.1, which is report from our manager of Brampton Emergency Management. Are there any questions, comments? Mr. Norman's here if we have any. Councillor Moore?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It was a great report, Elaine. I'm just a little confused about what the intent of this is. I'm not questioning the program. I'm not questioning whether or not the City of Brampton should be a partner to those who have the responsibility for human services over at the region. So where's this report going, I guess is more my question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of Council. The idea is really to build our capacity. It's to supplement what's already there in terms of emergency response. We saw during the ice storm that there was a lot of little initiatives that weren't really coordinated. We worked with social services in particular very closely during the ice storm, and but we realized that there was a lot of vulnerable population that we just did not have the resources to get to. So what we're trying to do really by this whole program is to build our capacity by engaging the faith-based community, getting them to be ready to work with us, to partner with us in order to help within an area near their place of worship in particular, where they can open their doors to vulnerable population. People can go in, get services, get help, get support, get just people hearing their concerns, and being connected with us then can refer to us any of these cases, these situations where they need additional help. And we can then work with social services in addressing the specific needs of those people.
Okay. Thank you. I'm glad I asked the question, and I'm glad that I got the response that I did. So this is, I guess when I was reading this, maybe I forgot to take off my regional hat. But I was reading this in the context of a program that was like a Salvation Army family life resource where we were, okay, I'm good.
No, sorry.
I'm good.
Mr. Chair.
I'm happy to move the report.
Just for disaster, just in emergency situations.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Okay, the report's moved by Councilor Moore. All in favor? That carries. Item 6.2.2 is report from Mr. Meneses, Commissioner of Community Services on the Powerade Center report update. Are there any questions, comments to this? Seeing none, would anybody like to move the report? Seeing no hands in the air, I'm not sure where to go. Councilor Medeiros, all in favor? I saw 3 hands. All in favor of the report? That carries. Thank you. No new business, no correspondence. Councilor's question period. Any questions or comments from anybody on council? Councilor Medeiros.
Thank you, through the chair. I think we appreciate some of my frustrations in terms of trying to acquire gym access. And I do appreciate that groups have rented it over a long period of time. I guess my question is regarding where are we at in terms of status working with school boards about some type of integrated service or?
Through the chair, so through our new Director of Recreation, Derek Boyce, we've commenced the dialogue. We've got quarterly meetings now scheduled with both the Peel District and the Public Board, and we are starting to do on our agendas our discussions in regards to our capital forecasts, operating forecasts, looking for opportunities for joint use agreements. The reality is, we all know this, that the school board facilities in terms of gyms, fields are utilized during working hours. The vast majority of our utilization of our fields are after hours and on weekends. So there's a natural synergy there, and that's exactly what we're looking for. So the dialogue has commenced. In fact, next month there's a report coming to committee for approval in regards to our first, not our first, but our most recent joint use agreement where the school board is refurbishing a field. We are recommending that we contribute from a lighting perspective, and the agreement for that new field will be the school board using it during the day and the city programming it in evenings and weekends. So that partnership is in full bloom. We are going to be bringing more and more of those partnership opportunities back to council for your consideration, but those quarterly meetings are on. I will also state in regards to your the ongoing query in regards to gymnasium space and things of that sort, it's one of the things that the Parks and Recreation Master Plan has identified as a need. We are looking at some of our facilities, existing facilities, and repurposing some of those to provide some additional gymnasium space. So it's very much on our radar, and it's very much a work in progress, but you will start to see some development in that area starting in 2018 with the capital budget submission and if the Parks and Recreation Master Plan is endorsed in June, as we're expecting, you will start to see a roadmap and a game plan over the coming years, how we will start to address some of those niche areas where the city has been identified as being underserviced, and you'll start to see some progress in those areas.
Thank you.
Mayor Jeffrey?
Just on this issue, I had met with some school trustees probably a week and a half ago, and they were unaware of our Parks and Rec Master Plan work that's going on in the city of Brampton. So my question to staff is, could you connect, I know operationally staff are talking to each other, but I don't think the politicians are necessarily aware, and in order to get buy-in, it helps if the politicians are aware. So if we could even just send them a link, because that 15-year Parks and Rec Master Plan that we're working on is only going to work if all of the parties we work with are aware of it and can be supportive of those plans and are apprised of where we think we're going in the next 15 years. So, thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Bowman.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I'm on now. Just a follow-up question, Al. Where are we standing right now on the South Fletchers, the upper deck of South Fletchers? It's been, I mean, we're going on almost 3 years now with nothing up there.
Through the chair, so council's recently approved our request for procurement, and I'm happy to report that we've recently signed on a broker of record. So we are starting, I believe there's a meeting scheduled this week and next week with the new broker of record. That property will be actively advertised now as available. We've got some ideas, we've had some expressions of interest, so we're hoping that those will now translate into a firm offer to sort of present an offer that they'd like to lease it for specific purposes, and we would anticipate sometime, hopefully if the market conditions are right, that we'll bring something back in the fall for council's consideration in terms of where we're going to go with that space.
Okay, so in the meantime, between now and fall, that space is totally unusable for anybody, or is there options to have somebody go up there just as a sort of a concrete floor and do training, do something up there?
Through the chair, if someone expresses a desire to utilize the space, we will certainly look at it. I mean, there's a bunch of things that we would look at from a health and safety perspective, security perspective, but there's no reason why we would not entertain any proposals to use some space.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have no more questions. I believe the next item will be corporate services, so I'll take the chair to let you go.
Welcome to the corporate services portion of the meeting. In 7.11, we had a presentation from Larry Beasley. 7.2 reports, 7.2.1 and 7.22 were in consent. We have other new business. 7.3.1 is a 311 in request tracking by Councilor Fortini.
Thank you, through the chair. Just wanted some information on the tracking of the 311. I got a couple of calls yesterday here, and complaining that they have to track something. You call back in 2 weeks, and they were kind of upset, saying, I like the unit, the tracking device. And another call on Monday, calling the 311 for a certificate for his mother that's going to be 70, and they said councillors do not give out certificates. So he called me directly. So I want to know how this tracking device is working, because we had member service on Monday and we didn't even discuss this. All of a sudden it was placed on the Friday.
Through you, Mr. Chair, perhaps I can start, and then maybe staff from 311 may be able to answer as well. At the May 8th Member Services Committee meeting, there was a request for staff to bring back regular statistics on calls into the council office that get picked up by 311, so that will be part of our regular reporting starting with the next meeting in September. As to those two specific requests, perhaps Community Services can speak to those, because I'm not privy to that information.
Through the chair, Councillor Fortin, I would recommend we take this offline. We can get the particulars for you, and we can certainly deep dive and give you an answer as to exactly what transpired, and then we can give you the details in terms of how we actually track all the calls that come in.
So my question is, so resident calls us, we're not allowed to send it to staff no more. We got to send it to a 311, and they track it, and then the resident gets to track it 2 weeks down the road. So it's a little bit confusing here.
So through the chair, just to answer your question, I think there's a little bit of confusion in the way that the phones are set up. So what you're speaking of is if the call actually gets to the contact center, to Service Brampton or 311, or through the council published main line, we would then track that just as we've been doing for years. So what's happening is if the call lands at the contact center, we are logging it so that your assistant would receive that log and that call for either follow-up, or even if the resident doesn't necessarily require follow-up, we still log it so that if you wish to follow up, you could do so.
But, so if a resident calls my assistant now about a tree or anything, she doesn't send it to staff no more, she sends it directly to the calling center, does the tracking?
It depends on the situation. So if somebody's calling your assistant directly, what we are implementing, and I think with Teresa's assistance, is if it's for a true service request, it is going through as a service request to the contact center so that we can log it, so that it's put in the right application. So whether it be an enforcement concern or a parks concern, it's getting logged in the right application so that we could actually dispatch the crew out to do it. It is also logged on your specific call log, which your assistant receives an alert that there's been a call log. So it's really just for tracking and trending and to make sure that we're dispatching out accordingly, especially if there's urgent situations that need to be dealt with.
So can't my assistant send it directly to staff and CC the calling center? You guys could track it instead of going from the tracking system, then my assistant has to go in and follow if it's done and it's not done?
They are actually sending it directly to someone that can manage it immediately. So we have an internal process in place so that it's being logged and dispatched out right away. And then a response is going back to the assistant that it was completed.
I was kind of convinced that a call comes to me or my sister. They send it out to any staff. They do the follow-up, and if you want to track it, they're allowed. But it goes to a tracking system, and then telling the resident, go back in 2 weeks and this is your tracking number, find out where you are. We're not giving any service to the residents. And I already got yelled yesterday twice saying, I used to vote for you, not for a calling center to call me back and forth. So at the end of the day, we have assistants here to do the emails, send it to staff, and then it's their job to do the follow-up. You know? And if you want to track it, as I said, or the city likes to track it, we can see the trackings, and you can monitor all the calls.
So can I recommend through the chair that perhaps either at another member services meeting or at another time, another meeting, we could actually go through the process to go through the whole process offline? Just for understanding.
So, Peter. Our next member service is when, September? No. September. So I like to refer back to member service, keep it the way it is, and we can discuss this more in member service, because I'm a little bit confused here. I got residents calling me saying, your assistant's not allowed to send, or I'm not allowed to send it to staff no more. It has to go to a tracking system. And they're the ones who send out to certain staff, and then we have to go back and look at a tracking number 2 weeks on the road.
So through the chair, if I may just step in, we're going to set up a meeting with you, Councillor. We're going to go through the details. We, including your assistant, will provide a full education and background in terms of what the processes should be, and we'll follow up with this.
Well, no, I'd like to send it back, leave it the way it is, and bring it back to member service.
We can certainly do that, but in the meantime, we can deep dive and find out exactly the two instances that you're referring to.
I'm not referring to two about the certificate. I'm referring, if I got a call today from a resident to my assistant, she's not allowed to send it to staff. She's got to send it to a tracking device. or 311. They're the one dispatch sends it to the staff, and then we have to do follow-up to go back and look what position that is. So it's double the work, and it's more confusing for the resident. Then the resident gets a tracking device and gets a letter saying, follow up in 2 weeks, they have to call. So it's not our job. Huh? So I like to move the process the way it is, and we'll talk on the next member service in September. Because I got yelled twice last night saying, what is this, I got to follow a tracking device number? So why am I here? Us.
Okay, thank you.
So is there any objection to staff or anything, I guess, for your information? Or?
I'll refer. We were not explaining this last Monday in member service, and this came up Friday. So we're going to spend all summer having people complain on the tracking. So I'd like to leave it, and then we'll discuss it in September in the next member service meeting.
Oh. Okay, so staff has taken it under advisement, so it'll be discussed at the next member services meeting in September. You done?
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
So the next item is 7.3.2, financial review. Mayor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to follow up on something that I had spoken about, I guess in February at my State of the Union speech about inviting Mr. McCarter to come back and have a review of what we have done in the last 2 years. And I guess I just wanted to raise it here, see what Council thought of that idea, but I wanted to speak about it a little bit before I asked whether Council would support this going for a staff report. I just wanted to remind everybody it's been almost 2 years now since we asked Mr. McCarter to come and do an independent review of our finances, and he set out some best practices, and we've followed, I think, the majority of them with regards to, I think at the time he talked about containing our costs, he talked about dealing with our infrastructure, making sure we had enough reserves set aside, and I think the number of changes that we've made are significant, they're substantive, and I think that they've had obviously a positive, they've been well received out in the public in the fact that a lot of our recommendations have seen our credit ratings improve. But I think when he came in, it was a very short window of time to evaluate our systems, and I think what we've been talking about, particularly in workshops, is where do we go from here? What are the next steps we can do in order to improve our financial status, our resiliency, our flexibility on a go-forward basis? So I want to be vigilant in what we do to control our practices, and I think in order to have that comfort that we are still on the right path and that we are making decisions that are prudent for our residents, it would be, I think, wise to not leave that report on the shelf, but to come back and have somebody reevaluate it. So I'm hoping that there's interest around Council to send this back maybe to the CEO to pursue how we could get Mr. McCarter to evaluate the steps that we've already taken and to say where would we go from here. And I'm proposing that we send that to staff, come back with a report on how we could implement having Mr. McCarter come back and to demonstrate that we've made some significant progress, and that was what I was putting on the floor, Mr. Chair.
So you're asking staff to come back with that?
Yeah.
Peter, do we need to? That's a motion to bring back the report. So that's a motion to bring back the report. So
and I realize we're not going to make a decision today, but just to raise the issue and have staff come back.
Right. So.
And that was the premise of the report.
So are we speaking to the motion now, or are we speaking just? So we're speaking to the motion. Councillor Gibson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no problem referring this back to staff. I just trying to, and maybe if we do that, we can bring back the original report that we had, because if I recall, I don't think there was anything really. Maybe we should put it a different way. I think we thought there was going to be a lot more outstanding type of things, like maybe even shocking type of things in his report, and there wasn't. And he had some suggestions, and if I recall, we had a report that said that some of those suggestions, and please correct me if I'm wrong, staff, had already been implemented.
Chair, can I just interrupt? I think we're talking about two different things. I'm talking about Jim McCarty's report, not the ombudsman's report.
Oh, okay.
It was the audit.
Okay.
Sorry, just want to make sure.
Right.
Yeah, but I thought, well, maybe I am mixing it up, but I thought that we had a report and some of the things that he had suggested we had already implemented. Maybe I could ask staff to respond to that. I know we had two different ones, but sorry, Dave, make you run down the stairs.
Through the chair, you are correct, Councillor Gibson. There were a number of recommendations in that report that we actually were already beginning to implement, especially in terms of our capital budgeting process, in terms of how we prioritize our capital, how we go about to do our capital contract budgeting. So we did do a number of things there to obviously improve upon our financial position here in the city.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought we talked about that at budget, so I'm not wrong. I mean, that's exactly what I'm talking about. But I still have no problem with staff reporting back, just to make sure we're still following the things. I also like to know, maybe we can remind us what that last one cost us and what this would cost us too. Certainly, but I'm glad the mayor is just asking staff to report back on that, so we're not making a decision on that today. But I'll support just sending it back to staff. But at this time, I'm not ready to support spending any money until I hear back from staff, because I think we're doing a pretty good job right now. Not that we never were doing a pretty good job, but I think we're doing a pretty good job right now, and I think the constituents need to hear that too. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Moore. Sorry, you got taken up. Can you go put yourself back on? Can you put yourself back on?
Oh, sure.
Sorry.
Oh, thank you. Just for clarification, Madam Mayor, are you asking for staff to report back on the McCarter report and a sort of a report card of where we are with some of the opportunities for improvement that he identified?
You want to put
Yeah, you're
okay. What I wanted to do is, if you will recall, at the end of Mr. McCarter's report, he was really asked to take the pulse of what was going on at the city and what our processes were. One of the things that he wasn't able to talk about in the window of time we gave him was what we do on a go-forward basis. So some of the things that he opined on were things like debt and how you use it, and other issues that larger cities are challenged with on a go-forward basis. So I think that at the time, we got a very high-level overview, and I think that there is some merit in having those bigger conversations, because we're at the point now where we're talking about some very big infrastructure projects, and I think that we've made some very significant, substantive progress, but what do we do on a go-forward basis as a big city? We've put money away in infrastructure. That's a very significant step. We showed courage to do those things. What are the next things that we might want to consider as a council going forward with our budget? And I think he said he wasn't able to do that in the time, and I think it would be useful to have that conversation again. I hope that clarifies.
Okay, having the conversation amongst ourselves with staff? Or
no, to ask him. To come back to evaluate what we've done.
Okay. I'm happy for staff to report back on where we are with regard to McCarter, and to some degree the Ombudsman's observations sort of can get folded into that as well, because it was a bit more in-depth in a different part of our financial landscape. But when you spoke at the Board of Trade, you talked about inviting McCarter back, and I think it's, I'll be straight up, I'm not in support of bringing McCarter back. I believe that we have a practically brand new senior management team. Harry Schlang is our new CAO, has, I think, gone above and beyond to try and build council's confidence and the community's confidence in what their government, the taxpayers' government, is doing on their behalf. I think with all the staff changes and the staff reductions, we're running a pretty lean machine here right now, and bringing in the ombudsman, I think, is a distraction that's not necessary at this time. And I see it as a waste of money. There was nothing scandalous or alarming that came out of the first report that McCarter did for us. There was not even a suggestion that a deeper dive would demonstrate that. I do, however, think that a report card of where we are and where staff see us going is a good thing to do at this juncture. But to take it to the next level and invite McCarter back, I think is, unless staff feel that in a report back that there's something that they really feel that they need help and support and guidance on. But I certainly don't see it, as one member of the financial stewards with the reports that are coming back with finance and the amount of information that's coming back to keep council updated. I think the McCarter report was, I always say when you hire a new commissioner or something, having an audit done on the department so they know exactly what they're dealing with. Well, I think that's exactly what the McCarter report did for us. It told, a new administration and a new council what the financial landscape was for us, and then it's our job to make sure that we make the necessary and recommended improvements and stay on top of it. And I haven't seen any evidence to the contrary that that's happening. So that's where I stand on it. But happy to have you, staff, bring back a report card.
Councillor Sproveri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Councillor Moore. We need a report card. We need to see what McCarter recommended, what we should be doing, and also see whether we've achieved that. I believe from a financial perspective, the staff has already indicated that at budget time, we were told that we were on the right track with the savings that we're putting away for replacement and repair of infrastructure. What we're doing today, we saw the graph, and we're on the right track to meet the demand, future demand. So that could be perhaps redefined for us, whether that has to be looked at. But generally speaking, I think it's prudent for us to initially do the report card, and then if we find that there's still some missing links that we haven't addressed, that McCarter suggested, and perhaps then that's the time to decide to bring him back to tell us what we must do to fill in those blanks. But I think the most, and of course, there's a cost involved, and we have. If it's really necessary, I don't mind spending the money. But if it's not, then I don't see the reason of spending extra money for that. So I support the report back in the form of a report card as to whether we have achieved and addressed all the issues that McCarter identified for us. Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Medeiros.
Thank you, through the chair. I'd like to thank the mayor for the suggestion. Similar to what we have just done, bringing in someone to provide that planning vision, we're going to hear someone who's going to provide that vision around culture. I think even more prudent is that we have someone to provide that vision around financial discipline and where we are at the city. If we remember a couple of salient points that McCarter brought in his, when he provided his report, is how much the city was spending on salaries towards our budget. So it'd be interesting to do that check-in and see where we are now, provide that financial vision more so. And I think if you went to even taxpayers, if you went to our residents, I would say if there's one component of the city that we really have to ensure that we get right and that we have a strong vision going forth, is our financial discipline, is our financial vision. So I would welcome McCarter to come, and I think it would be a disservice if we didn't provide that. I think it's really difficult for staff, with all the work that they have operationally, to be able to provide that lens and that vision in terms of what's been happening, not only looking back at what recommendations were put forth at the time, but also look at where we should be going towards in the future as a municipality. So I want to commend the Mayor, and I thank you very much, and I'd like to support it.
Chair or Councilor Bowman.
Thank you very much. A little premature on the chair.
Yes.
I don't mind sending this back for you guys to come back with a report on it. My personal view is that I think it's at this point it's a little premature. We've got a brand new executive team that's been put in place here. Harry, you've been here for just over a year now. I don't think that your team has even had 6 months together as an executive team to get together, to look at things, to make your plans, and to run the city the way that you envision the city should be run. So I'm all in favor of looking at it as far as cost and having a report card done up, but at this point I just think it's a little premature. I think we should give our executive team a little bit of time to work together and figure this out. Thanks.
Request that the chair be heard? Oh, is yours still on?
Yeah, I just had another question.
Oh, okay, all right. Go ahead.
Well, no, just speaking to the comments, I think that the same thing would apply for the other areas when we say, we need time to mature different areas, and we're talking about, the financial well-being of our city. And I think that'd be more pertinent, and there's an urgency around it, specifically after what we heard when we first came in our first year and where we are now. And I think that's independent of, organizational structure and what we're doing. I think that goes hand in hand. I think it complements itself well. But on one end, we're looking at different departments and saying that we have to bring in folks from outside to really provide that, outside vision. And I think this would be even more pertinent that we bring a financial, someone who really provided the roadmap in which we followed as a city to a certain degree, in terms of addressing our infrastructure deficit, ensuring that we bring a CEO who will tackle, the weight that we had in terms of salaries going towards our budget. So I just think it would be a real disservice if we do not give it that importance, our financial vision, as we give other areas.
Request that the chair be heard?
Yeah.
Do I need to vote on that? All in favor? Recorded vote. I just want to say real quickly that, when Mr. McCarter gave his report, I don't believe they were minor findings. We've done a lot of planning and made a lot of major decisions based upon them. We found out we had debt. We had an infrastructure deficit about $1.2 billion. We had depleted reserves, and as was mentioned, a lot of money was going to salaries. So I do support the motion. So seeing no other questions, the motion is on the floor. Yep. So I'm going to read it out. Moved by Mayor Linda Jeffrey, that the CAO be requested to report on the option of engaging Mr. McCarter to perform the follow-up evaluation and report on the progress made with the recommendations provided in 2015. Sorry.
The progress made?
Was that? So I'll read it again. I'll read it a little bit slower. The CAO be requested to report on the option of engaging Mr. McCarter to perform a follow-up evaluation and report on the progress made with the recommendations provided in 2015. Yeah.
I think I understand what it's saying. It's just that we're going to ask staff to report back on whether or not they feel there's a need to do that. And also, I'd like to see the cost in that. So can I ask the CAO what his interpretation of that motion is, so we're all clear on what they're reporting back on?
The way through you, Chair, the way I interpret that is the option. I think that word, the option. So we'll present, a report card of how we've done, how we feel as staff, whether this is necessary or not. I would like to provide that opinion. And then as well, thirdly, what the cost would be, and it would be then a council decision on whether you want to go forward with that option or not. So that's the way I interpret it. Give you the cost, give you how we've done, give you our view if we think that it will add a lot of value, and but you'll make the decision.
Okay. I'm happy with that.
Okay, so I guess the word option encompasses all of that. So seeing there are no more questions, the motion is on the floor. All in favor? Passes unanimously. 7.4.1 was correspondence and motion regarding the FCM Legal Defense Fund. Are there any questions? Councillor Gibson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was the one that asked for this to be referred for more information, and we also, the very next day after that's here, we had a conversation at the Region Appeal on this, and I'm satisfied that the taxpayers aren't paying twice for this, so I'd be happy to, unless there's other questions, to move the motion on it. I'm glad that we have some clarity on the regional and the city aspect of both. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is the same motion that's on the screen that Councillor Gibson is moving that was considered at Council last week and referred to this meeting along with the correspondence to allow for some conversation at the Region Appeal Council, which the Council just advised has happened.
So the motion's on the screen. So the motion's on the screen. All in favor? That carries. Council question period. Does any councillor have any questions? Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Economic Development and Culture section.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Dillon. We will move on to Economic Development and Culture. We have two reports today. First report is from Kelly Stahl, Senior Manager, Cultural Services, and I understand she's just going to speak briefly on the Arts and Culture Panel report. Go ahead, Kelly. Thanks.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, members of Council. The report before you presents the recommendation of the Arts and Culture Panel, which was established by Council in April 2016 for the purpose of advising on the role of the municipality in arts and culture and to make recommendations for the development of the Culture Master Plan. Thank you to the members of Council who sat on the panel, as well as I'm pleased to share that there's several members of the panel here with us today to show support for the report, including the Chair and Vice Chair of the panel, Mr. Chuck Scott, Mr. Jose Bertrand, as well as James Caswell and Helen Custodio. Thank you for coming today. Over the past year, the panel has engaged in significant work and discussion towards developing their advice and recommendations. This included research and benchmarking of other municipalities around the world to identify best practices in areas that could be improved in Brampton's cultural environment. The panel has now completed the review and have put forth the following recommendations for Council consideration. Regarding the role of the municipality in arts and culture, the panel recommends that the City assume the role of facilitator, partner, and promoter for Brampton's cultural community. Municipalities around the world are shifting their roles to increasingly focus on building capacity and sustainability, facilitating access to tools and resources, and brokering strategic partnerships while moving away from the more traditional model of delivering cultural programs. With the alignment of Economic Development and Culture Division, the City is well positioned to be effective in this role. The panel recommends that the City move forward with the development of the Culture Master Plan, ensuring broad stakeholder, community, and key representation in the planning process. The outcomes of the panel's work should be made available at the outset of the master plan process for helping build common understanding of critical cultural issues in Brampton among stakeholders and engagement participants, helping to focus and elevate the level of discussion. The panel also recommends that the City's existing community grant program be reviewed to streamline process for applicants to support a robust range of artistic and cultural activities. By implementing process enhancements for considering cash and in-kind grants and investing in a wider range of cultural activities, Brampton can more effectively meet the needs of the cultural community, support its strategic priorities, and contribute to the development of a vibrant and diverse cultural ecosystem. Lastly, the panel recommends that the City continue to engage formally with the cultural community on a quarterly or biannual basis. Through the facilitation of regular and purposeful discussion with leaders and stakeholders in the cultural community, the City can drive information exchange, innovation, and collaboration, enable sector-led troubleshooting of issues, spark ideas and action, strengthen relationships, and develop opportunity in the sector. Pending Council endorsement of the panel's recommendations, staff is prepared to advance these priorities, including moving forward immediately with the development of Brampton's first cultural master plan. With the delivery of these recommendations to Council, the panel recognizes that they have achieved their mandate. Staff has thanked the panel for their hard work, and it is recommended that the panel be formally acknowledged today for their contributions to this initiative. At this time, we are pleased to receive any comments or questions you may have on consideration of the report and recommendations before you.
Kelly? Councillor Willens?
No questions, just thank you to Chuck for bringing that panel together. It was a lot of good people on that panel. Thank you to staff. It was well. I was one of the councillors on there. It was very informative, and it was very educational for me as well. But again, thank you, Chuck, because we had a broad spectrum of people from across the community, so it was well done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Willens. Councillor Medeiros?
Through the chair, I'm not sure if appropriate. I would like to ask that Mr. Scott just come in as the chair of the panel, just to share with him some of his experiences and thoughts. I know you've been very passionate about the issue, and if you can just provide maybe some comments on how you thought the panel was in terms of engaging with the cultural community and how effective you think some of these recommendations are.
Okay. Chuck, come on, but we will need to add you as a delegation, so I just need 2/3 to add it. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Welcome, Chuck.
Thanks for setting up the Arts and Culture panel. First, I want to thank all of the people who served on it, 19 citizens from across the city, representing a range and mix of our arts in the city and culture groups. It was a great honor to be part of it. And the councillors were, there's 5 councillors out to most of our meetings then, it was a great support. And we had people from the Brampton Library and PAMA and all sorts of other arts and culture groups across the city. So it was great to be part of that. I think the 3 things that they're covered in the report, but to maybe put them in layman's terms are, we lack infrastructure. We need some kind of recreation center that's designed. Something that has glass blowing and studios for dance and studios for sculpture and clay and that sort of thing. That was a consensus of almost everyone in the room. We still need to keep our theaters access for the local groups, but we also need to enhance them with better programming that will allow us to raise the level of what Brampton is. Perhaps with things like film festivals and things that are not just centric in our community, but could bring people from all over the world to our community. The other thing is an arm's length kind of thing. We talked about facilitation from the city, and that I think is important, but maybe there's an arm's length thing. Maybe it's something like an arts council. I'm not sure what that model is. Again, the cultural master plan will come forward with that. And finally, funding. A way to make funding streamlined and easier and available to groups as seed money. No one expects full funding. I think that providing seed money to the arts will in turn give economic development to our city. The arts is an economic driver, as we've talked about before, and we believe as a committee that that's what we want to do in the arts in Brampton, is to make it an economic driver within our community. Thank you very much for your time.
Very good. Any other questions, Councillor Medeiros?
No, thank you very much.
Councillor Moore, you're next. Did you have a question of Chuck? Or okay, thanks very much, Chuck. Councillor Moore?
Thank you. I do want to thank Chuck for his leadership, pulling the community. You had a good understanding of the folks in the community that could and should sit around the table, and I think you chose well, so thank you. And I also want to recognize staff, Kelly in particular, for the staff leadership on this, and I think Chuck would agree that it was a good partnership helping to champion this and move it forward. I guess on a personal note, it took, and I don't mean this as a criticism, it's actually a compliment, it took longer than I think any of us had anticipated to get to this point, but it really is evidence that you can do things quickly or you can do them right. And, the recommendations from the panel, I think, are the right recommendations. Whether we get to a third, an arm's length agency will be proofed out through the master plan exercise. Even an arm's length agency or entity would be facilitated and supported through the efforts of the staff at City Hall. Bringing all of the groups together was really the right thing. As I said, it took a long time, but a whole bunch of things happened in the middle of it that just made it more successful at the end. So thank you to everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Gibson?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I haven't got much more to add, but just to ask the question of staff, there's a couple of the recommendations here that really, I think, we need some clarity on the timing of, and in particular, the timing of the development of the cultural master plan, and I think there's one other on the grant program, on number 4 there. Can maybe we get some sense from staff when we could see something for that?
Sure, yes. The plan is for us to issue an RFP at the beginning of June to do the work on the Culture Master Plan. We're hoping to have work on the ground in September, starting with the research component. We've been able to fast track some of that early stage by the benchmarking that the Arts Panel has done already. So we're looking at expediting the process and are hopeful for MA 2018 Culture Master Plan.
Okay, good. And the grant, they're looking at the existing grant program?
Yes, through the chair, that's something that we're also in Economic Development and Culture under review currently, and we've been working with the different organizations, so the comments from the Arts and Culture Panel as well as comments from the sport tourism community to identify changes that will create more opportunity and make the community grant program more accessible.
Okay. Because I said right at the beginning of this whole process that I didn't want this to become a group of people, a group of council members sitting around a table having a nice chat and then nothing happens and it gets shelved, because that's what we're good at doing sometimes, particularly when we comes to planning the Queen Street corridor. That's a little bug in my bonnet. So I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that you're reacting very quickly on that. And I'll put a challenge out to Chuck out there. If you don't see anything happening by the end of this year, please come back here and tell us. Thank you. And I agree with Councilor Moore's staff did a fantastic job along with the volunteers that were on that committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gibson. Thank you for the report, Kelly. There's no question a vibrant arts and culture community lends itself to economic development in any city. So thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing the next stage of this go through. Councillor Gibson, would you move the report and the recommendations? All in favor? That didn't pass. All in favor? Thank you. That passes. And Kelly, you're up again for a brief report. We do have the report in our notes for the sports tourism update, but I understand you'd just like to add just some brief things about it.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity just to speak quickly to the sport tourism report that you have in front of you today. As sports tourism is recognized as the fastest growing segment of Canada's tourism industry, Economic Development and Culture recognizes the economic benefit and sport development opportunities accrued by hosting sport tourism events in Brampton. So in April 2017, just last month, the Sport Tourism Unit moved from Recreation to the Economic Development and Culture Division to align with the Tourism and Special Events Division. So given the increasing complexity and number of sport event opportunities, it's important for the City of Brampton to engage in the development of a tourism strategy that clearly articulates the City's role in bidding and hosting of sport tourism events and guides the creation of policy, procedures, and programs that support this line of business. In Q3 of 2017, sort of immediately from here, staff will undertake the development of a tourism strategy that will assist the city to become more strategic in pursuing the emerging market segments of culinary and sport tourism, as well as festivals and events. Throughout the development of the strategy, the Sport Tourism Unit will work closely with the Recreation Department and stakeholders to develop decision-making processes and best practices to support current and emerging sport tourism opportunities. Staff will update Council on the development of the tourism strategy and our efforts to profile Brampton as a sport tourism hosting destination.
Thank you very much, Kelly. We do have a couple of questions. Councillor Willens.
Yeah, just quickly through the chair, thank you very much for bringing this report, Kelly and your staff and Bob, for getting this work done. This is good because we have missed some significant tournaments in the past, one of them being hosting the Ontario Lacrosse Association. We could have been a host this season for it if we had been able to have something like this put together. If you need work, if you need some contacts, we can put you in contact with those people because they are very interested in coming to Brampton because we are center in the Ontario There's teams that come from as far as Windsor, there's teams that come from as far as Ottawa and past Ottawa. So it's a big tournament. It brings a lot of people in, and it's certainly well known around the country. So there's a lot of opportunity there. So if you need some help, get some contact people because they are interested. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Willens. Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say thank you. I'm so happy that this is under this umbrella. I don't know who made that decision, Mr. Schlang, if it was you, wait a minute, because this has been a long time coming, that this is the way we should be thinking about this, because we've been thinking about it in the wrong way, and that comes from a sports guy. And I think under your umbrella, it's going to be a little bit different, the way that this kind of approach on this happens, and I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gibson. Seeing no further questions, Councillor Gibson, would you like to move the receipt of the report? Thank you very much. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. We will move on to we have no other business to take care of right now. Councillor question period. Anybody have any questions about economic development and culture? Councillor Medeiros.
Thank you. Through the chair, actually, I'd like to go back to public services. I had spoke to the clerk, and a question that just a comment I forgot to make at public services that's been highlighted and explained to me by Councillor Fortini. So I'd like just to ask a question, if that's possible.
Okay, should we finish off? We're done economic development now. Okay, so we'll close off economic development now, and we need 2/3 to go back into, no? Is there a will of committee to field a question? Sure, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Medeiros.
Thank you, Council, for your indulgence. And essentially, I think Councillor Fortini and I was going back and forth, and I do apologize because I do recall us discussing this. I think the issue is around, I guess, the public works. We get calls in 311. So if it's regarding the public works, what happens is that call is not forwarded to staff or to our assistant and to council office. It's directly given a service number, and it goes out to staff internally. And then after there's I guess, an ID number that we have to follow. So essentially what that does is it cuts out our involvement in the process. Not only are we the ones accountable to our residents who want an update or want to understand if this is being taken care of. As you can appreciate, the frustration is from a resident. When he calls in, he's expecting that his councillor is giving him that service, be it him or there's a live voice. What ends up happening is when we're attributing that number, we really take out that human interaction and that accountability that I have to face when to track it. That becomes part of the frustration. And I think part of the issue as well, and I will say this respectfully, is that this was brought up in a manner which there was not allowed for engagement with council to decide if we like this process or not, to even debate it. And then we're put in a situation where it was presented in a manner after Membership Services Committee, which is only going to start up in September. So I don't think, I'm not sure if this was planned, I'm not suggesting that, but certainly it's a coincidence that this process is introduced after our last Membership Services Committee. And it didn't give us the opportunity to provide it. And I know a lot of my council colleagues, maybe are not expressing publicly, but it created a little bit of a rift privately. And it is a concern if we don't have that opportunity.
Through you, Mr. Chair, maybe I'll start to answer this. The City of Brampton has in place a call tracking system, a service request, a work order system, I guess, for simplicity, that is used to efficiently and effectively dispatch work orders that come in from calls from the public. So if a call comes in through the call center to the public, from the public into 311, it's routed through the work order system so staff can respond. If a call comes into the councillor's office directly, what we've been working on is a way to get that request as well into the system so it can be properly routed, prioritized, and dealt with in an efficient manner. I think this is a bit of a relationship back to the last question from Councillor Fortini. The work order system that's been in place, I think there was a new system implemented in September of last year, in the fall I believe it was, and given the fact that there wasn't a council liaison coordinator in effect until recently in March, We didn't roll that out to the constituency assistants. But the opportunity and the ability for constituency assistants in the council office when they receive calls directly from the public, that's always been a long-standing practice, is to ensure that those calls get into the service request system so they can be appropriately dealt with in a priority sequencing order. What we've done is on Member Services Committee on May 8th is there was a question came up about calls coming into 311 that are routed to the council office. So staff are going to be, as I mentioned before, reporting regularly back through Member Services on the quantity of calls that are coming into 311 for the respective councillors. I believe there was a staff meeting, I think that you're alluding to, that the council office team held this past Friday, where we started to introduce to the constituency assistance team to start using the work order system that we have in place in the city as a more effective means to actually receive requests that come in through the council office, to ensure that they're dispatched properly and to ensure that they're responded to. And as Michelle Solsky pointed out when she was speaking earlier, there is a closing the loop system, because if 311 receives those calls, they do produce a log, and that log is provided to the constituency assistants. So you're made aware of those calls and, as the case may be, can respond back to the constituents. Members of council will have access to those calls that come in through the council office. If a member of the public calls in directly to 311 to dispatch a pothole, a tree, an issue, that is something that is dealt with at the staff level. So that information, particularly who the person is, where they call from, what street they live on, that information is not routinely provided to members of council because it includes personal information. So unless we have consent from those individuals, that member of the public, we do not share that information with the members of council. We provide summary statistics, and that's available. But if there's a direct contact from the public into 311, our job as the corporation is to respond to that as efficiently as possible.
So, through the chair, so a couple of concerns I have. One is, you met with our assistants, but essentially the accountability in the face of the city is really the councillors. So when we hit the doors, and regardless if you don't share that information or it's a service, that service reflects on us, how good the service was and how bad service was. It is difficult for us to be able to deal with an issue, deal with residents, if we're taking out the human opportunity, the assurance that we're following up on the issue. So first, I find the lack of engagement and the lack of communication with councillors, first I think was surprising, especially when we had Membership Services Committee. Why wasn't this presented then? Because there wasn't a big span. So that leads me to suspect, I don't know if this was planned. Second, again, in terms of the accountability, understanding, it's almost as, with all the different departments, different commissioners have that responsibility. One commissioner won't go to the other commissioner's department, look at their processes without engaging if there's some work that has to be done. Essentially what's happened is a corporation made a decision that impacts councillors and in terms of our relationship with our residents. And I think that's probably one of the fundamental rationales for our position, is to be able to engage with our residents, be their voice, and ensure they're getting the effective services that we talk about. So and I say through the chair again, respectfully, City Clerk, when we talk about effectiveness and efficiency, how effective and efficient is it if we're not being engaged as councillors on this process? And we're being told that this process is, standard corporate level. But when you're dealing with resident issues, this certainly has to, I would feel more comfortable, in my ward, my residents call me, that it gets directed to my assistant for me to log it in and have it logged in through the regular service, channel and process. That would, I think, would be more appropriate. So that's my opinion. I would hope my colleagues, it seems everyone's silent on this issue. But I think...
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think what your statement you made at the end, that's exactly what the city's doing in terms of if a call comes in through the council office and gets routed to 311, it's logged, and then in the dispatch system, the work order system, as well as 311 provides a close-the-loop email back to the constituency assistant to say a call came into the councillor and it's been logged, this is the tracking number, and that will allow for follow-up by the member of council.
Councillor Fortini.
Thank you, through the chair. I don't know, I'm a little bit confused. I went to yesterday, 254, a resident calls me about a grading issue. 311 send it to Works for investigation, and they give them a service number and ask them to call 311 within 2 weeks for an update. He called me last night and said, "Where you gotta go around chasing people around? I want me to deal with the resident. I got elected. If there's a call coming to my office or to me, it is my job to do that. I don't even have 311 in the evenings, comes directly to my cell phone. We hired 5 new assistants because we said we couldn't keep up, and now it's going somewhere else. Oh, yeah. So, and like Councilor Madero said, we had member service Monday. We were not told this. And all of a sudden, Friday, it goes to a different department. So, and they have certain rules. So there's certain rules here that, that we cannot serve our residents. My job is at the end of the week, I call all the residents back to send an email, make sure everything, they're happy. There's a courtesy call. I can't do this when it's going through a tracking device. If they want to track it, we could just see them and they could track all the calls they want. But it's our job to resolve the problems or send it to the right staff or our assistants.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Fortini. Councillor Gibson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I like Councillor Fortini's motion at the beginning to refer this back to our committee because, quite honestly, I thought I understood it. But after listening to the other couple of council members, maybe I don't. So I'm going to ask the questions this way. Ever since 311's been in place, if somebody calls 311, that's what they do. They track it and put it forward to the appropriate department where it would be taken care of. So that theory doesn't change, I don't think. If somebody calls the council office, then our staff would take it. Before, what they would do is they would, for instance, send an email to Al and say, "Mr. Commissioner, here's the issue, please take care of this." I think what's changed here is now the staff would take that, and they still have it, and forward it to the reporting center where it's going to be put out to the appropriate staff or put out to get the job done. So it's kind of, from my understanding, making it quicker to get the constituents done, because now instead of forwarding it to Al and then Al forwards it, we're bypassing Al and setting it right. And I want staff at the end of this to correct me if I'm wrong, because maybe I'm not understanding. That's the way I see this happen. The staff in our office still have that initial contact when it came to our office. So what our staff, Councilor Morris and I were doing, is letting the constituent know on behalf of us that it's happening. If they call our office and say, "I'd like to speak to Councilor Gibson," then Councilor Gibson is going to call him back. It's not going to be taken away from me to call back. It's not going to in any way take that away from me. So I'm not sure I understand, unless I'm missing something here, where the concern is. Because when I initially saw this, I thought, wait a minute, let me think about this. And I had to think it out, and Councilor Moore and I and our staff talked about it through emails about how it was working. So I don't know. Am I wrong in how that's going to work, or is there another level that I'm missing here?
Through the chair, I believe your interpretation is correct, Councillor Gibson. As I suggested earlier, I'm thinking there's a little bit of misunderstanding here, and there's a bit of confusion over something, and I'm not sure exactly where the root of it is. But as I suggested earlier, I suggest that we take this offline. We can do a sort of a real fulsome review of exactly the situation, the two situations that have been brought up. And I think what we need to do is really do a little bit more of a tutorial once again in terms of what the process is, exactly sort of tracking exactly where every log is in terms of a flow chart, so that everyone, including your assistants, are aware of exactly how the process works and how we're all tied in. The reality is, over the last few years, that this sort of has been an evolving process where we've been making adjustments and sort of refinements to the process. For those who will recall, over the past few years, we didn't really have a centralized tracking system, and things were going all over the place, and we didn't realize exactly when things were getting accomplished, when things were getting closed. We were closing the loop, and part of the process now, which I think works well, but we'll have to review it once again, is we've got that centralized database now where we're able to track all the requests that come in. We're tracking exactly how long it's taking for these requests to get resolved, and we're following up to ensure that everyone's aware of exactly what happened. So I'm not sure exactly what happened in these two particular circumstances, but we can certainly investigate. But the centralized process is there that tracks all of that, exactly as you mentioned.
So what we used to be accustomed to doing before 311 basically came into existence and is now full-fledged is we used to normally send off either our staff or ourselves if we got a constituent that called and had a complaint or wanted us to look into something. We dealt with the directors normally. We'd send it off to directors. Sometimes we copy the commissioner, and the commissioner really didn't have to get involved. So really what this, and then of course the director or whoever or the staff, it depends on the confidence that we had in whoever we were sending to, would then send it somewhere to get the job done. So am I correct? And so what we're really doing is sending it directly to get the job done. And I'm assuming that there's going to be some follow-up for the commissioners, directors, and all that kind of stuff, and they'll know what that is being done. Of course, they're obviously going to know what their staff are doing. So I think I understand it. I think I did understand it, but it was, I'll have to admit, to me it was a bit confusing at the beginning, and maybe we needed to somewhere, whether be one of the other committees, that have a little more discussion on how that was going to work, because I think it did create a little bit of confusion amongst us all. But as long as the council members and our staff know what's going on, know that these complaints are coming in, and we have the opportunity to follow up with our constituents, is what we should be doing, I'm happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gibson, Councillor Sprovieri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to understand, and I have to say that I've had situations where constituents have called me and said, we called in about 2 or 3 weeks ago and nothing's been done. They called in 311 and nothing's been done yet. Can you look into this? And I believe that the way to, and I'm not sure whether this is already in the works, but the way to resolve this is for when a 311 call comes in, it should be also staff, the work order should be put through as normal as they do now, but it should also be sent to our assistants to track. So our assistants are aware, and we're also aware that people have called in looking for a certain service, and we can then ask our assistants to keep track of with staff whether the job is being done, or at least staff can perhaps notify our assistants that the job is done, and if it's not done within the period that they were told, then that's when our assistants can take action and find out why it hasn't been done yet, and perhaps inform the resident. I think that this would really improve the service perception with constituents, whether that there's a follow-up and there's someone actually is making sure it's getting done. So is that something that's already in the works through you, Mr. Chair, to the clerk?
Through the chair. As we discussed previously, when every call comes into 311 through the constituents, through a counselor's constituents assistant, it's logged, it's tracked, and the constituent assistant is provided that call log and those details. So that is, the process you're actually mentioning is being followed right now.
So our assistants become aware of the calls after they come in?
Those are logged, and then the assistants are provided a log of exactly the calls that came in with the issues.
Okay, so now it's up to our assistants to make us aware of these calls and basically...
And I think that's what I was trying to get to, is I think we need to have a little bit of a tutorial in terms of a re-education to make sure that we're all under the same understanding of exactly how the process is to be followed and what everyone's responsibilities are.
Okay. Yes, truthfully, I've called 311 on the weekends when I see some garbage pickup or snow removal problems, and they say, "Do you want a number?" And I said, "It's okay. As I'll be passing by here tomorrow, if I don't see the garbage picked up, then I'll be calling in again." Yeah. So, but I was not aware that actually our assistants were being provided with that data. So that's good that we can deal with our assistants then. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Spolieri. Councilor Gross. Councilor Fortini.
Thank you, through the chair. I think we're a little bit confused here. I'm not talking about the 311 in the evenings. I'm talking about daytime. It says over here, what this means for the council office staff. All future calls from Public Works and Engineering Department should not be, the management and staff within the various departments should not be contacted by our assistant. That's what it says here. Only if we're contacted directly to us. That's it. I'm not talking about the 311 at night, Mike. So really, in the daytime, when someone calls my assistant, they're not allowed to send a complaint to staff. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'm not talking about the 311 at night, because here looks like we're going 311. It says they're not allowed to contact work in the department at all. It goes through a tracking system. Am I right, Peter?
Through you, Mr. Chair, you're correct. I think you're referring to...
So we're not
if I can explain, please. I think you're referring to, I guess, a guidance document that was provided at the staff meeting for council office on Friday.
Right.
And this was based on discussions that we've had in the council office with all the departments in trying to find a more efficient, effective way to deal with these requests when they come in with the councillors. If a request comes in directly to a councillor, and a councillor wishes to call a director, a commissioner, a manager, that is the councillor's prerogative, and there's no issue with that. What we're trying to do is to be efficient and to ensure that we're prioritizing responding to calls in the right sequence and right order is if a call comes in to the council office, to the constituency assistant, to try and get that logged in the system so it's dealt with in the right priority order.
But we still can CC the contact and put it in. So what? My assistant's not allowed to send it to staff. What is she there for? At the end of the day, she's supposed to do emails, answer phones, do something. And we always look at Mississauga. I met with some Mississauga councillors. A resident calls me for a complaint to my assistant. My assistant has to send an email back to them, says, okay, if we use your contact. Then the resident's got to send us back. Yes, you're allowed to share my name. Then we got to send it to staff. If they send me an email, why can't we just send it directly to staff and deal with it? That's double the work.
Perhaps I'll start. There is the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, which says if somebody contacts you and shares their personal information, we are not permitted to repurpose that information for anything other than for which it was collected. So we are prevented from sharing it with others unless we have consent.
So Mississauga, Toronto, and other municipalities are breaking the rules.
Doesn't matter. You know,
Chair, I'm just asking. I don't know.
Chair, you know, I'm accountable for this. The two councillors can take this offline, talk to me about it. I'm ultimately accountable to this. We're talking about staff. I'm responsible. So let's talk about it. The clerk gave you good information on privacy. I don't care what other municipalities are doing. Okay. We're doing it properly. So come and talk to me. I'll take ownership of this and we'll resolve this.
Through you, Mr. Chair, through Councillor Fortini's earlier questions, we didn't take a motion, but what we took away from staff was that we would not be implementing the requirement for constituency office staff to log the requests that come in through the constituency office into the system until we report back in September to Member Services Committee.
Councillor Medeiros?
Yeah, through the chair. I guess, Al, going back to, the 311, when we talk about the process, my understanding is so when someone calls in, we'll share the call log, but we won't share the residential information. Do we tell the caller, would you like this to be shared with your counselor? Is that provided? That is not.
Through the chair, I don't have the answer to that question.
Yeah, so that is not. So the issue I find with it, so if there was engagement, one of the things I would talk about is corporate memory. So when I go out to a door, staff may have a record of corporate memory that we fixed a pothole on this street. We should get shared a log, we have a pothole, but who made the call? So when I'm knocking at the door, Ms. Smith is saying, counselor, yay, nay, I liked it, didn't like it. I don't have that corporate memory. Yet I'm accountable. So I appreciate that staff for working on these processes. I was a civil servant myself. I worked on processes for like 12 years. So I have a full appreciation for it. But also there has to be an appreciation of the political accountability that I have. So I go away and I don't know where there was that disconnect, why there wasn't an engagement with counselors to speak about something which is really fundamental, the type of work that we do. In terms of the details, so when we talk about resident issues, it's not just building our database, but it's that corporate memory that we need to understand, is this a caller that calls constantly? If they're calling me, sometimes it becomes a point where we get the same callers calling, and if they're calling us and they're calling 311, but yet we don't know who's calling what, there's a lot of multiplication of work. There's a lot of duplication of work efforts. So I think those will have to be in consideration. So I'm not sure. So my understanding is the motion is that it comes back in September to membership services?
Through you, Mr. Chair, staff will be reporting back on the current process and to September member services. We also have a lunch and learn session, I think, planned for members of council on various issues in June, and this may be something that we introduce in that as well.
And we can, through the chair, correct me if I'm wrong, we can call an emergency or a membership services committee before September if we deem fit?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, there's two, either at the call of the chair with appropriate notice or through a petition of the majority of the members of the committee. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Medeiros. Councillor Dillon.
Thank you. I got off the board, on the board, on the board, and off the board.
You're back.
But I'm back on the board. I agree with a lot with Councillor Fortini and Councillor Medeiros in that we, and I've said this quite a few times, it almost feels like I'm a corporate robot. And I feel like my assistants are corporate robots. Zombies following the rules of the corporation that we have no flexibility ourselves and to do what we're elected to do. And sometimes we might think sometimes, a lot of the times that we know the way our office operates and what's best as well. But the question I have, I don't know who it's to, but the tracking system, what is the exact purpose of it? Do you guys... So it's to prioritize, obviously, but is there some type of profile that you create? Is it used to identify any key themes that you're seeing? What is exactly it for, other than to refer back to it?
Through the chair, the purpose of the data system is for us to start to track our response times, to track the number of calls come in, to track our resource capacity to deliver, so we start to see the trends. So it's what you would expect. So you start to assemble a database, it starts to give you certain trends, it starts to give you some information, and then you start to react and you start to resource appropriately depending. You'll start to see some stats in terms of given a time of the year, you'll have some certain calls coming in, you'll know that you'll have to staff up for that. Mm-hmm. It starts to give us some tracking in terms of how long it took us to actually close specific work orders and specific types of work orders so that we'll know whether we need to resource up to address certain requirements. So it's exactly what you can imagine. It's providing that database so that we could deliver better services.
Could you not prioritize it, for example, still? If, look, for example, if Councilor Medeiros sends you an email directly, you're not able to prioritize that currently or previously?
Through the chair, I mean, what happens is there's an intake process, and depending on the type of request that comes in, it's assigned a certain priority, as you can imagine. So if it's something that's deemed a lower priority, it'll still be tracked, we'll still get it done. But if there's something that comes in which might be a health and safety issue, or might be a specific requirement, right, then it'll be given the appropriate priority.
So not to belabor the point, I think you had mentioned your responsibility as well, but at the end of the day, people elected us, and we have a responsibility as well to serve them in a correct manner. And I've said it so many times, it feels like we're handcuffed sometimes in the ability to, or a lot of the times, but it's in the ability to serve our residents in the best way possible, whether, we're taking away, responsibilities or flexibility from our assistants. Sometimes I'm wondering, what are we really doing here? Why do we have counselors when they just report directly to staff? It seems like it's an easier system for staff, but it might be good for one counselor, might not be good for another counselor. So I think at the end of the day, I think a discussion would be good. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. Thank you. No, I support, I'm looking forward to it coming back for more clarification. From my standpoint, we do have full visibility into all the 311 calls. There is a log that we can all look at, and if we can just take this under advisement, Mr. CEO and Al, when I get a call log back, if I look at it, if it's gone to 311 and it says resolved, it's crossed out, it says resolved, and then you read the comments, it would say number so-and-so, so-and-so. But as far as I see, that's it. I don't know when that gets resolved. I don't know where in the queue that went. I don't know if it's done tomorrow. I don't know if it's done 2 weeks from now. So that's the issue I have with the 411. So if it can be enhanced in any way, resolved may not be the best word to cross out and put in. Resolved to me means that it's been taken care of completely, and I can call the resident back, and they'll say yes, they were here, it's been done. So perhaps there's something else we can do there, just from my standpoint. But I'm looking forward to this coming back. Thank you very much. All right, we don't need to do anything. Do we need? No. Okay. Thank you very much. Seeing no more councillor questions, we will move to the government relations. We had a briefing report sent out this morning, or actually yesterday. Government relations matter. Is there any questions? Mayor Jeffrey?
So I just read this report, and it's actually kind of troubling, and I'm glad the Commissioner of Planning is here, because I'm going to throw it in his court. We just had somebody here this morning talking about planning for our city and growth magnets and population magnets and trying to plan, and we've got a report here that says the population distribution and employment to the municipality doesn't result in us achieving a 40% activity rate, which is a priority for us. It also says there's inaccurate statements. It also says there's a potential concern for shifting growth from Mississauga to Caledon, and that there are some scenarios offered here that don't work for us. So I think the final outcome in this is that receipt of the report is recommended. I don't know that we should be receiving it if it doesn't serve Brampton's needs and it doesn't reflect what our staff believe to be accurate. So I'm not in any mood to accept this report. I think we as regional councillors need to say, refer this back until we're satisfied with the projections and that it meets the needs of our city and our strategic plan. So I'll leave that to maybe the Commissioner to answer. Have a response? Or Lowell? Lowell, you're here. Good. So I'm just saying receipt to me is not, if we think it's wrong and it doesn't reflect what we want as a city, I think we should be standing up and saying we're not satisfied. And it would appear that even though we've been an active participant all along, it still doesn't meet our needs and it isn't reflecting what we say is a priority for us as a city.
So that's a great point, and through you, Chair. So after Growth Management Committee tomorrow, there is a staff working group meeting, so I know that the same concerns will be raised then, and we'll be continuing to advocate for the will of this committee.
So that's my will. I'm hoping other regional councillors feel the same way, so I'll leave it to you to express strongly our dissatisfaction with where we're headed right now, and that until and unless our staff feel it reflects what this council has said is a priority, that we are prepared to support it.
So thank you through you, Mayor, through Commissioner, ensure that the staff does advocate tomorrow and ongoing discussions.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Any other questions? Okay, do we need to accept that report? move to receive the report, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much. All in favor? Excuse me, that carries. Public question period. Anybody from the public wish to come down and ask a question? Seeing none, we will move to break, I would guess, and then closed session. Today will be in 6A due to a presentation to be provided, item 13.3. Okay, so we will break for half an hour and then meet back up in 6A. 12:30. Yeah. No, we'll be upstairs. Thank you. Man, barely got through that.
No,
Jesus.
I mean, I didn't even see that memo, so I didn't even know what that was about. But, I mean, from my perspective, I think it's hard to speak to someone when they don't even know what the hell they're talking about. I'm here to tell you what this is all about. This is about the
And it's materials too.
But it's about the change system. There's an answer. She's doing a few trying to find people and back. And she runs them up like a freaking rag doll and sits back and launches them up and stirs it all up.
Yeah, because she could handle that.
That's what she does all the time. That's what she does all the time. We were speaking to Peter about it. Even when we were doing the space over there, she'd come up and she'd go, you know, and she was giving me but I need this, and this. But, you know, it's up to you guys. I'll accept whatever you do, but it would be, so she gets them all around. And it winds them up like a freaking rag doll.
Yeah, she's scared to get fired.
Well,
I mean, that's just a guy, just to say, you know, people can't.
of course.